So this story is insane, and it's basically The Nation came out with this article saying that the U.S. is now in the business of human trafficking, which is a crazy headline, right? And it really kind of makes you think, like, what the fuck are they actually talking about? But their argument for this is that the Trump administration spent $6 million to knowingly disappear hundreds of people into a foreign prison where they are being made to work without pay in torturous conditions. So it turns out what they're talking about is the maximum security prison that they have in El Salvador with terrible, conditions. Del terrorismo is what it stands for. I probably butchered that. But it translates to the terrorist confinement center. And this article was actually fucking insane. So after deporting 238 Venezuelan immigrants to a notorious mega prison in El Salvador, likely in violation of court orders, the Trump administration has triggered an unprecedented showdown with the judicial branch to defend its ability to deport immigrants without presenting any evidence in court. Basically, the way that they're doing this, and they're invoking the state secrets privilege, and the state secrets privilege, basically, it's something that the government can invoke, and it essentially means that they don't have to justify what they're doing because they say it's a state secret. What is the state secrets privilege? The privilege allows the U.S. government to withhold sensitive information such as intelligence sources and methods and foreign affairs details from becoming public as part of a court case. Okay, you guys get the point. That just basically over-explains it. The government's doing this. They're basically taking what they believe is what they're saying are undocumented criminals. That's their justification for it. They're saying that they're taking undocumented criminals and they're sending them over to this maximum security prison in El Salvador. But they're not doing any due process for it, right? Like, there is no due process. There is no checks and balances. They're just kind of picking up people based off of vibes and sending them there, which is, like I said, it's insane. This deportation effort constitutes a clear assault on civil liberties and due process rights. It also represents an arguably dark milestone. The U.S. government is now in the business of trafficking migrants on the global market. So why are we calling this human trafficking? On March 15, the Trump administration struck a $6 million deal with the Salvadorian president Nayib Bukele, in which the government traded 238 people to be warehoused for a year in Sikot with no possibility of release. So basically, when you go to Sikot, like, you're not getting out. Once you get sent to Sikot, you're done for. You're toast. Once you go to Sikot, there's no due process. The only way you're getting out is in a casket. And even though the courts have told Donald Trump that he can't keep doing this, Donald Trump's administration doesn't give a shit. And even Homeland Security, Kristi Noem visited. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but it gave the video gave such concentration camp vibes because it was just bad. This is Kristi Noem, and she was standing in front of a bunch of incarcerated people, and it was just really weird vibes. Honestly, it was giving concentration camp vibes. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. That's what it was giving. This is the video. The video came out a while ago. Now, this is what I want to talk about, okay? So Trump administration is claiming that all the people that they're sending there are for sure undocumented criminals, right? That's what they're calling them. They're like, oh, these guys are criminals. They need to be sent to this maximum security prison with no human rights. But what had actually happened was they illegally deported a person in Maryland, a man in Maryland who's also a father, and he had already been granted protected status by an immigration judge. So he was actually here legally, and he didn't have any kind of criminal record or any kind of criminal ties, and they accidentally sent him to this El Salvador prison, and the Trump administration admitted that they did this. The Trump administration admitted it. So the Trump administration admitted that they sent this man by accident, and they also said that there's literally nothing they can do about it. So this is the man that they accidentally sent to Sikot. He's a father, and he had complete legal jurisdiction to be in America, and when they were, inquiring to the judges in Maryland, can we bring this guy back? The judges in Maryland were like, we don't have any jurisdiction over El Salvador. The courts told Trump that he has to stop doing that. But then overnight, last week, he deported 17 more people. Like, they just don't really care. They just don't care. That's the worst part. So once you go to Sikot, for 23.5 hours a day, you are held in a cage. You're held in a cage with about 80 to 100 other people. You sleep on metal bunks with no mattresses. There are no mattresses. And they basically use them to do free labor for infrastructure, manufacturing commercial goods, and harvesting agricultural products. So essentially what Donald Trump is doing is he's illegally rounding up what he believes are undocumented immigrants and criminals, what he claims are sends them to Sikot, no, due process whatsoever. And then they're forced to do unpaid labor for the rest of their lives without any chance of getting out. And so essentially what Donald Trump is doing is that's slavery. That's literally slavery. Whether it's an American citizen or not, the act of you selling people to a country so that they can do unpaid labor, that is the definition of slavery. Our grandchildren are going to be reading about this in history books, and they're going to be looking at us like, how the fuck did you let this happen? Right? And we wouldn't even have an answer for them. And what's crazy is that he's making hundreds of people disappear, many of whom don't have any kind of criminal record or any gang affiliation, and he's sending them to Sikot. And so now let's talk about why he's doing this, right? So in the United States, it costs about $60,000 to incarcerate one person in a domestic immigration detention center. So in order to keep somebody in ICE, it costs the country around $60,000, right? But if you send them to Sikot, if you sell them to Sikot, you spend $25,000 per person. So overall, the federal government is projected to save around $8.3 million with this deal. With the added bonus that you're sending these people away, putting them into a prison, and you don't necessarily have to think about them coming back because they're basically going to die in that prison. And so are there better ways as a country that we can be saving our money? Absolutely there is. We could be saving our money in so many different ways. One of the best ways we could be saving our money is not sending so much free money to Israel with no fucking requirements or anything like that, right? We spend money on so much stupid shit. The Pentagon has failed audits multiple years in a row because they can't account for money. But yet this is how you're trying to save money, right? Is by doing modern day slavery. It's just insane. Doing this is no different than sending people to a concentration camp. It's not. You're taking people within your society, within your sovereignty, you're selling them for a certain amount of money so that they can go and do unpaid labor for the rest of their lives in a very terrible prison. That's pretty much a concentration camp with a little sprinkle of fucking slavery. Slave trade. I mean, this is probably going to continue to happen. I don't really know if this administration is doing general research on what they're doing here, because this will 100% disrupt the US economy. Immigrants largely work in low-paying jobs, so which is the backbone of our society and our economy, like construction, agriculture, hospitality sectors, jobs that Americans are not willing to do for that pay. Forced out to do free labor in El Salvador is essentially going to run those jobs dry. Like, there aren't going to be people doing those jobs. So you're talking about shipping some of the most integral part of our society, of the economic part of our society, to El Salvador. Long term, this is going to have huge impacts on our economy, especially if Donald Trump does this on a larger scale. Right now, we know about 250 to 300 people have been sent to this El Salvador prison. Obviously, he's getting a lot of pushback from the courts and people and etc. society. But if he starts doing this at a much larger scale, then economically, this is going to have a huge trickle effect over time. And that's also going to be a larger issue. But just going beyond the economics, this is just such a fucked up thing to do, just point blank period. In general, you're literally engaging in modern day slavery. Not even slavery, slave trade. I can bet you $100 if Donald Trump could do this, if he could take the undocumented immigrants and have them work on the Trump Tower for free, he would do it. He would do it, because for him, people are not people. Everyone's kind of like a chess piece in his game. You know what I mean? He just wants to see how he can move people that will personally benefit him and his distorted agenda